So today I want to talk about humility and joy. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Stein, and today I'm talking about humility and joy. More specifically, that the more humility that you have, the more joy you will have. Now, this is for people who are trying to build something. Maybe you have some projects. Maybe you're an artist. You're a musician. You're maybe even a business person, or starting some charity, or trying to develop a brand or some type of prevalence on social media, some type of influence. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, the more humility that you have, the more joy you will have in your life and in your pursuits. Now, I want to talk about two drawbacks of not being humble. The first one is it's coming from a place of insecurity. Many people who feel insecure or who don't feel adequate enough in whatever it is they're doing can often try to overcompensate what they do or how they speak or how they act in order to make up for that feeling of insecurity or that feeling that they're not good enough. I think this is the situation that a lot of people find themselves in, that I find myself in sometimes. That when I'm in a situation where I don't feel maybe up to par to other people, or especially if I'm comparing myself to others, I can feel insecure in either in my mind, typically not in my actions or what I say to try to make myself look better, but usually in my mind, it's a vulnerability for me. Other people, their vulnerability is to act out, braggadociously in terms of maybe what they're spending or what they're wearing or what they say or how they act, how they walk. Now, the second source for a lack of humility is actually success, and maybe one has had a recent run of success, or maybe they've had a lifetime of success. And what this does is that it reinforces, if one is always winning, if one is always doing well, it creates a confidence which is good, but it may cause them to gain notoriety or people around them who are seeking to benefit from this success, and that it creates sycophants, or more colloquially referred to as yes men or yes women, people around that constantly say, yes, 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 you're right, And what this does is it changes one's true ability to see reality. And if someone who is constantly being reinforced for what they're good at, it's usually something specific like acting or sports, or maybe they're a politician and they've gained some success. Or maybe they're just good looking or they're wealthy. When people are around them reinforcing that, it causes them to lose reality and think that they're right in other areas that they may not know about. So let's say, for example, if someone is a famous actor and they are very acclaimed in their field and people love their movies, all of a sudden they may become an activist, or they may talk about science, or may talk about things that they may not necessarily be an expert in, but people start to listen to them and it makes them think that they know what they're talking about. Either way, success can lead to one not being humble. Now, one of the main drawbacks for not being humble is that if you're deeply insecure and you try to cover it up with arrogance, or if you've had a run of success and you start to lose the touch with the reality, it's not going to allow one to be joyful. It's not going to allow one to truly be at peace and enjoy either their success, or to be grateful and joyful in their lack of success. And there's so much in the world today, and it seems like that the world, not the world as some inanimate object, but the people within the world are creating this system that tells us that we should get and acquire things and be things that aren't necessarily helpful for us. And that breeds insecurity, or it breeds arrogance when there is success and maybe materialistic gains or financial gains. Now, why do I say that humility brings joy? Well, when we're not caught up in this insecurity or superiority complex that most of us fall into, I would say most of us fall into the inferiority complex because most of us aren't super successful. That it messes with our minds. It causes us to be ungrateful. It causes us to compare ourselves to others. It causes us to do things to win against someone else when we may not necessarily want to do that particular thing. Maybe someone doesn't want to be, an extreme example is this, a trader on Wall Street that stays up, super late every night and gets up really early. Maybe they want to be a painter, but they're doing it because they're comparing themselves or their wealth to someone else. So the main issue is the inward issue, the dealing with the stress and the depression that comes from trying to either overcompensate or trying to maintain this level of greatness or what people think. More humility brings joy. Now, there's a second reason, and that is whether you're super insecure and you're arrogant to cover it, or whether you're really successful and you're trying to maintain this level of notoriety, is that it's off-putting. You may have seen, people on the news or people on social media, or maybe just the local person that's bragging, at the water cooler at work, or maybe one of your friends who's always trying to name drop or drop some bit of information about what they accomplished. It's very off-putting. Maybe you've bragged or been arrogant in the past, and people have maybe checked you on it or called you out. It's very off-putting to be around people who are arrogant. And often, people who are really, really arrogant and aren't humble are usually very, very unhappy with a lack of joy. So I say, the more humble you are, the more joy you will have. Now, what does this do? For the person who is insecure and who has not accomplished what they want, humility allows them to keep the proper perspective of, I don't have to become this or that in order to be happy or to have joy in my life. I don't have to achieve whatever someone else has achieved in order to achieve what I personally want. And that's really, really important. For the person who's super successful, humility means that no matter how big I get, no matter how successful I am, I'm not going to treat other people as if I'm better than them. Because ultimately, most people's success comes down to a few things. And those few things don't define that human as a whole person. It's usually, if you define someone's humanity by how well they shoot a basket or how good they are at making money, it would be a very incomplete picture of who that person is. So the person who has those gifts and has that success shouldn't look at other people in a sense of arrogance, or it's going to take away from their own sense of worth and value as a person. Being arrogant and bragging and overcompensating, or at least putting it in other people's faces, is very off-putting. And it's very, very stressful on one's own life to keep that up, whether they are coming from an insecure or successful place, one of the two. I'm really, really interested in what you think about this, what you think about humility and joy, because most of us, I think, even when I stop and kind of think about it just for a second, I'm like, well, if I try to bring myself down in order to serve other people or to think clearer about other people, or maybe I'm very successful and I've done something great, to kind of lower my view of myself in order to keep a balance, that doesn't seem like it would bring me joy. It doesn't seem like it would naturally bring something good for me. It seems like that might take away from what I've done, or maybe even reduce the way I feel about myself. If it's even less already, maybe it's even more. But I encourage you to think about this, because for me, it's been really, really helpful when I've tried to compare myself to others, or it may be in times where I've done something well and I start to get arrogant about it. Humility always brings a bigger sense of joy in my life. And joy is being content. Joy is being grateful. Joy is enjoying myself in the midst of either hardship or in the midst of success. Humility brings more joy. I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comments. Appreciate, any feedback or any things that you might want to share there. But as always, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again next time.